Hello and welcome to another live walkthrough. Today we're going to be looking at openSUSE 15.2 Leap, which leaped into action just a couple of weeks ago. Today we're going to be looking at that. One of the reasons for that is because I've had a couple of questions posed to me this week on my channels, and one of them was the fact that some people were having trouble trying to get the xfce version of the openSUSE desktop there, because during the installation process it wasn't offering xfce as an option. So today I'm going to walk you through how you can do that. If by accident you have installed one of the other desktop environments, i.e. Plasma or GNOME, or even the standard one, then there's still ways that you can get hold of the xfce version. So what we'll do is we'll do a live installation, and you can actually see during the installation process where you've gone wrong, and also when we actually have the distribution installed, I will show you where you can go to swap around those desktop environments. So on your screen now you can see this is my locally installed version of openSUSE Leap 15.2. I've been running this on my daily driver now for a few days now. I will say I did come across a few teething problems, but most of those was user error. However, I did have to do some digging around to try and find some solutions. One of the things that niggled me during the last few days was trying to get Spotify to actually install and run on openSUSE Leap. It looks like, doing some digging around, that the actual application is not supported in Leap by the looks of things. I'm not entirely sure how true that is. However, I got it to work after several hours of digging. So what we'll do is we'll do the live installation, and yeah, we'll just use that as a prime example. So if you yourself are experiencing that same issue, we have a solution for you. Yep, so let's go ahead now and see if we can get the live installation. So we're going to use a virtual machine to do this inside openSUSE Leap. Let's get this fired up here now and bring this into the screen for you here. Get this up and running. This should be up and running. Here we go. Oh, no bootable device. That's a good start. Believe me, 10 minutes ago that was working. So let's just do that properly again. So we're using Virtual Machine Manager here. So let me just show you how we can go about this from scratch. Right, so let's do a new virtual machine. We do a local install ISO. And I already have the ISO loaded here, so that's fine. If I just click forward, it's detecting that was openSUSE, which is great. It's suggesting that I use 2 gigs RAM with dual CPU. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to ask it to use 4 gigs RAM, so we do 4096, but I'll still use 2 of my CPU cores there. Now, the minimal install for openSUSE is roughly between 10 and 20 gigabytes. I would probably say you're going to need about 8 gigabytes for the actual install itself, and then the rest will be down to you with your applications and obviously what files that you're going to be creating inside the platform itself. So I'm just, for the purpose of today's demonstration, going to use 25 gigabytes. That's more than actual is needed here inside this virtual machine, but we're going to give it a try anyhow. And if we click next, it just summarizes. So we've got 4 gigs on the 2 cores with 25 gigs of hard drive space. Networking is already set up, so that's already now going to go and set that up for us. And here we are, we're up and running now. So if I just maximize this screen here, and if I go into full screen mode for you now. So here we've got the screen that you see on first boot up. So if you have downloaded and written it to a USB live key, and you pop that key into your system when you first boot up, this is what you'll see. So at the moment, by default, the language down here is set to US. I'm in the UK, so I need to change that. So I press F2 and I can choose English UK, press enter. Video mode is something that will niggle me most throughout, so I need to get that changed here and now. So if we press F3, we can now have a look here and go to installer size, and if you just press your right arrow key or even press enter, you'll get your selection of resolutions available to you. These are the default resolutions, but hopefully what it will do is it will kind of detect what kind of hardware setup you've got and offer you the appropriate resolutions available to your setup. So in my case, I've got a full HD screen on 1920 by 1024. So let's go ahead now and select 1920 by 1080. Pressing enter, you can see now that F2 has selected UK, F3 now has done the video mode as 1920 by 1080. My source, even though I'm doing it inside a virtual machine, is going to be DVD. Now the reason for that is because I've actually done the full DVD download. And it's worth pointing out at this point that the file itself, when you download the ISO from the openSUSE website, it comes down at about 4.2 gigabytes. So depending on your internet speed and what kind of hard disk you've got, yeah, it could take some time to do. But in my case, because I've got super fast internet connection here, I managed to get that file downloaded within the space of less than 3 minutes, which is pretty good. So just be warned that that file itself is a 4.2 gigabyte download. That's if you download the full DVD version. So definitely for a live USB key, you're going to want a minimum of 8 gigabytes and recommended of 16 gigabytes to create that live USB. So now with this in mind, let's go ahead with the installation. So we're going to press, oh yeah, just one thing to point out here. If you do already have openSUSE Leap and a previous version, when you pop this USB live key into your system, you are given the option to upgrade. So there you can upgrade to the latest version, so in this case 15.2, if you're coming across from version 14, 13 or less. And I'm told that you can also at this point as well use this option here to upgrade Leap into Tumbleweed. But I haven't tried that yet, so don't quote me on that one there. However, we're going to do an installation, so let's just select that and press enter. See, now let's just check in the kernel and loading it in for us. Incidentally, if you would like me to answer any questions, feel free to pop those into the chat. We are live streaming as we do this. The chat is there for you now. Pop your questions in there. Say hello to anybody that's joining. And I will do my best to answer those for you here. There may be some stuttering on the video whilst this installation is taking place. So apologies if that's happening there. And I will say on experiences this week that the actual installation itself could take anywhere between 15 minutes to 45 minutes depending on your hardware setup. If you're installing it onto an SSD, yeah, anywhere between 15 and 20 minutes I'd say. But if you're installing it onto a slower machine, then you could be looking at up to an hour maybe. So just bear that in mind when you try to install this 4 gigabyte installation. Okay, so we're nearly there. I do like these progress bars in SUSE because it kind of reminds me of the old DOS days when you see that going across. But if you do actually want to see everything that's going on, I'm told you if you press the escape key, you can actually see what's going on. See? But I like to see the green progress bar on this. Okay, so we're now starting Yoast, and we're now starting the installation. What we should get in a moment is the actual installation GUI wizard load up. And that's obviously now connected to the internet because I saw the word downloading. Okay, so now it's just setting up my network and preparing for a local installation. Okay, so it's done the network and it's now preparing for installation. Now it's adding the repositories. And notice there, just looking at it quickly on first glance, that it is downloading repositories from version 15.2.1. So it seems already that there's been a bit of a point release on this one. So they might have patched a few bugs during last week's release there. Okay, so here we have now the license agreement. So because in the first screen before I started the installation selected English UK, it's now by default pulled me through to English UK here in the top. But if you have by accident obviously noted that you've got a different language here that's not your own, then you've got the drop down list there to be able to select the correct version. I'm English UK, so it's automatically now selected English UK as my keyboard layout. Let me just do a quick QWERTY test on that one with me at and my ampersands, exclamation marks, quotes. Yep, so it's all working fine. All the keys are in the right place, and that's obviously UK ISO based. Okay, so we click next now, down here in the bottom right hand corner. And it's now asking us to activate the online repository, so I'm going to say yes to that one. These are the default repositories, but you've got the chance at this point to obviously ask it to add in any additional repositories that you like, be it from source, debug, or untested. So just checking the untested here. What that would do is offer you out security and maintenance updates that still need testing by quality assurance. So it hasn't quite reached the stable branch of the installation there. So that's the reason why you're not offered these as defaults, and you're only offered main, update, non-OSS, and the update of the repositories to the non-OSS installations. So we click next now. Now it's doing some preparations on your hard disk to add in the repositories that's required. It's interesting to note as well, the progress bar says 100%, but it's still processing something in the back end. There we go. Right, so here's what I was talking about earlier on. So during the installation process, you may or may not want to choose to install the xfce desktop. I'm not sure if you can download i3 at this point, but by default you're offered KDE Plasma, desktop with GNOME, generic desktop server, or transactional server. So in the case of this installation here, I am going to choose GNOME, and I'm going to select next, but I don't want the GNOME desktop. I actually want to install xfce. Why xfce is not offered as an option on that screen there, I don't know. That could be down to licensing issues, but I'm guessing that the openSUSE environment is primarily designed to run off of KDE and GNOME, or GNOME. Right, so before we begin, I just want to point out some partitioning here. So I am using a virtual machine and I've told it to be 25 gigabytes. So by default, it's saying now that I'm going to do an installation. I'm going to create an 8 megabyte BIOS partition. I'm going to create a 22 gigabyte file location with a 2 gigabyte swap. I actually don't need swap, and I actually don't want any of this that it's configured here. I mean, 8 megabytes, fairly small, but I'd like just a little bit more. So I'm going to choose Expert Partitioner, and I'm going to start with existing partitions. And what that will do now is that will scan through the hard disks available. Now, if you're on a local machine like I am, but not outside of a virtual machine, you'll probably have some more hard disks selected here. But because I'm running from a virtual machine, I only have VDA as an option here as my hard disk. So what I actually want to do now is, having selected the hard disk that I want to install openSUSE on, I'm now going to select the Partitions tab. And you can see here we have an unpartitioned 25 gigabyte drive. Of course we do, because we have nothing installed on it yet. But you may be upgrading, or you might just be trying to retweak some of your partitions so that you can put openSUSE on there alongside other installations. So here in this case, if there was some existing installations here, I will probably delete them all. Playing safe, of course. But in the case here where I've got nothing partitioned, nothing installed, I'm going to add partition. And now I'm going to say I want a custom size, and I'm going to create the boot partition, which is 512 megabytes. So I just type 512M, click next, and I'm going to create an EFI boot partition. Now I'm not entirely sure what you would do with the legacy builds. I think you just choose raw volume for that one there, but I have a UEFI set up here, so I'm going to choose EFI boot partition. Basically what it does is, when you boot up your machine, it actually goes to that partition first to run grub, and then give you the options available to either load openSUSE or open up Windows if you're running as a dual boot. So next I am going to create another partition, and here, yeah, I am going to format the device, and in fact, no, it's not on the partition, this is the existing boot partition. So it's worth pointing out the boot partition has to be FAT32 in a lot of cases, but it's just listed here as FAT. We don't need to do anything else here. It is going to format that area there, but we're going to mount the device under the mount point of /boot/EFI. So these are defaults. We don't want to do anything with those, so we now click next. Now we've created our 500 megabyte partition. We now want to add another partition, so we click add partition again. And now we're left with the rest of the disk, i.e. 24.49 gigabytes. I don't want to create a swap because of the size of the disk, and I'm running a virtual machine. But if you did, I would suggest at this point that you choose to obviously create the new partition and obviously create a swap area based on the gigabytes that you're using in RAM. As I've got 16 gigabytes on this desktop here, I don't actually need swap. But if you are running a 4 and an 8 gig, it's advisable to create a swap partition, just so that the desktop has got another way to store some data when it needs it most, especially if you are a laptop user and are going into hibernation or sleep mode. In my case here as a desktop user, I don't need this, so therefore I'm going to use what's left of my hard disk here to create the data and the installation partition. So here it just says what type of installation is it. So this partition is going to be for my data and my applications. So I just leave that selected there and click next. So what are we going to do? We are going to format the disk, obviously the remaining area, but we're going to change the file system. So at this point here, you've got the option to choose BTRFS if you want. openSUSE does love using what they call as ButterFS. But in most cases, ext4 will do you. So I've just changed that to the default, from the default, sorry, to ext4, and I'm going to mount point it on the root level. I don't need to do anything more than that, but if I had a swap there, then obviously if I was creating a swap, I would choose swap from here, and as you can see, it automatically selects it as swap. But I'm not in this case, so it's ext4, and I'm going to mount the device as root and use F-step options there by default. So now click next. You can at that point as well on that screen prior to this actually tell your installation that you would want to encrypt the hard drive, so you can do that as well. So now we're ready for the installation. We now click accept. The system might not be able to boot. Yeah, that's just the generic, so we just say yes to that. So now you get a summary. So it's saying it's now going to create you a GPT partition on dev VDA. That's the root of the hard disk that you are selecting there. And it's going to create a VDA1 partition, which is 512 megabytes for the boot EFI with FAT. And then it's going to create you the 24 gigabytes remaining, should I say here, at root level on ext4. I'm happy with that, so now click next. You can, if you want to, on a fresh install, actually allow openSUSE to install with the default and the recommended options there, but obviously what I've just shown you now is a way to be able to override those partitions. So now it knows I'm in the UK, so on the next screen here it's selected my region as Europe. It's also going to check the hardware clock set to UTC. It knows I'm in the UK, and the current time here on the 10th of July is 17:54. That looks fine to me, so I click next. And now we're going to create the root user. So put my name in there, and my username will be Robin. Create a password, put the password in again, and you can at this point tell it to be just a standard user. So you could say use this password for system administrator. If you want it to be a standard user, you just deselect that box there, but you will then select this by default if you want me as the system administrator. I mean, I can at this point as well create more users and have them set as standard users, but in my case here I'm going to be the system administrator, and because I'm in a VM, I'm going to say automatically login, because I don't want to be entering my password every time I load up my VM, because I've already used my password to log into the actual system itself. So clicking next now, that's going to create the user. It's gone to check the verification of security on my password, and it's saying that I've got letters and numbers in my password that is based on a dictionary word. I know that, but do you really want to use this password? Yes, I do, thank you. Now it's going to give us a summary before it carries out the installation. So remember what I was saying, that you couldn't actually choose to select xfce as your desktop environment. Well, now this has done its detection and has given you a summary of the software that's going to be installed. You can see here now that it is going to try to install the GNOME desktop environment, because I selected GNOME on that screen there when they gave us a selection of desktop environments. I want to change that. So I'm going to click into software, and that will now bring me up a list which you would normally see as an administrator in the back end once you're logged into the platform. And it's here where you can say, oh, I didn't really want to use GNOME. I might want to override that and say I want KDE. or LXQT, or the Mate desktop. I want to install the xfce desktop, so I'm going to click on xfce desktop environment. By doing that now, that selects it, and as you can see here from a summary, it's saying it's the lightweight desktop environment for various Unix systems. If you don't deselect these, by the way, it will install xfce alongside GNOME, so you will get that option when you do the first boot up every day to choose which desktop environment you actually want to be running. I don't, so I'm just going to deselect the GNOME environments. And it's there now that it's taken all the rest of the gnomes off, and it's now left me with just the xfce desktop environment. Checking down here, you can see that at the moment we currently have 19.5 gigabytes free out of a total of 24.5 gigs. So you can see here that it's needing roughly around about 1.6 gigabytes to 4 gigabytes to actually, no, 5 gigabytes it says there now, to install openSUSE. We're saying 5 because obviously don't forget we had that 512 megabyte root partition as well for the boot up process. So it's rounded that up to roughly a gig. Okay, so are you happy with that? Yep, I'm happy. If you want to, you can click on show details here. And you now see some more information has appeared here. So when I click on xfce desktop to select that, you've now got the chance to select or deselect the various things you want to install or uninstall during this installation process. Now I know from playing around with the xfce environment last week that I had to download a number of plugins that I regularly use when I use xfce, and I had to do that separately. So I'm not going to do that for the purposes of the demonstration today, but one thing I am going to do is show you how you can get those installed during this process. So I like to use this weather plugin, for example. So I'm just going to check this box here. That will say, okay, I'm going to install that once I'm doing this installation. There's a screenshot shooter, as they say, plugin tool as well, so I like to use that. There's a note-taking facility. I like to use that as well. Network load, I also occasionally like to use that, so I'm just going to install that. And there's also the, where are we? There's some xfce dev tools. I have got that installed on another installation on another device, but I'm not going to install it here. There's the date time plugin, so yes, you want that one as well. And where are we? I don't have any batteries, so that's absolutely fine. But I do, because I have a HP printer, I'm going to install the HP lip printing service. And then the rest is all default, so you've got the xfce screensavers, etc., all coming through. One other things as well, in terms of wallpapers, now you do get a selection, but they are very minimal. So let me just see if there's any xfce wallpapers. No, but there are themes, additional themes for XF Window Manager 4. So yeah, I will download those because that might also bring through some extra wallpapers. System load, yeah, I'll give that one a try. I might not use it, but we'll have a look at that. So pretty much now, sensors, yep, I use that regularly as well. That's so I can see my CPU temperature, which is something I like to do. I'm ready to go, so I just click accept now. And here you get a summary of what's about to happen. Are you happy with that? Yep, I'll continue. And now it's evaluating those packages. That's now changed the software summary here now to xfce desktop environment. And we are ready to go because I don't need to enable the SSH. I don't do any sort of networking stuff here. Network configuration, that's all done by default, but I've got the chance to switch it across to what they call wicked. So I can override the network manager there. The default system D target is graphical mode. Yes, of course, we don't want anything loading up in a terminal. And it's ready to install on the boot partition. So let's now go ahead and click install. Information required for the base installation is now complete. If you continue now, partitions in your hard disk will be modified according to the installation settings in the previous dialogues. Go back and check the settings if you are unsure. So just have a quick glance and see, are you absolutely sure? This is like your secondary verification in this case. So yeah, I'm happy, so I'm going to now click install. And notice how the install button was to the left of the prompt there rather than to the right. That's just to catch you out, so you can click back if you wanted to. Okay, so we're now about to start the installation, and when this starts, we'll just pause for a moment and take a few moments to let this install. This could take anywhere between 10 or 15 minutes, so let's see what's going on. So looking at the clock now, yep, it's 6:04, so let's see how long this takes to install, and we'll be back shortly. So here we are now 10 minutes into the installation and only 39% done. So you'll spot here a bit of a summary at the top of the screen with the details here. You can see that we are still now 760 odd packages to install. It's estimating that we've got another 23 minutes to go, so that's 2 gigs worth of data to go. Okay, with the installation now complete, our system is now rebooting. Okay, with our system installation now complete, we are now booted back into the fresh installation now of openSUSE xfce. Now, because I'm running in a virtual machine, the resolution has by default come through as 1024 by 768. But if you're doing it on a local installation, then by default that should come through as your full screen setup. In my case, 1920 by 1080. But as I'm in this virtual installation here, I just need to make one tweak to get the display sorted out. So I just pressed my super key, my Windows key, and got the start menu come up. And here I just started typing display, and I'm going now to click on display. And here I'm going to set the resolution to 1920 by 1080. And click apply. The screen goes blank momentarily whilst it just refreshes. And I'm going to say keep this configuration. And click close. Now, as you can see here now, we are running full screen and we have a fresh installation of openSUSE 15.2 Leap in xfce. So, one thing to say straight away out of the box is this is absolutely beautiful. I will say that the Leap team have done a fantastic job integrating the xfce 4.14 desktop. It has a very similar layout to Ubuntu, of course, because it's xfce. The icons are the same. The layout is very similar. However, in a Ubuntu, by default, the panel loads at the top of the screen. In the case here of openSUSE, the panel has loaded at the bottom of the screen. So you are first greeted by this welcome screen here, which you can, if you want, switch off here where it says show on next startup. I'm going to obviously select that now because I don't need to see this on next go. But here you can do some reading up on the installation, and you've got full access to documentation which can talk you through openSUSE and what you can and can't do within the system here. You've also got an opportunity to get software. Obviously for first time users, you might think to yourself, oh, I need to install this, I need to install this, and I need to install this. Yeah, we will do that in a moment. But first of all, just pointing out that because I told the installation that I wanted to include the HP printer service, you can see here I've got HP lip already loaded and is there ready to use. So when I next boot my printer up, it should automatically detect that I have a HP printer and give me the required drivers for that. Software wise, let's just have a quick look before we click on get software. So if we click on the menu here, you can see we've got our categorized view. These here are your favorites. You can add and remove applications as you so wish, but the common ones that I'm always going to use are the terminal, YAST and YAST software. If I wanted to load the internet, obviously load up Firefox, I'd go to internet, and there's my Firefox browser waiting for me there. So let's open up Firefox and see which version we are running here. My sources tell me that this is the ESR version of the browser. I'm not entirely convinced. I do believe this brings down version 76, could be version 77, or even the new version 78, but we will see when this loads up. So we just bring us across a bit. And we click on the hamburger icon here, and we go into Help and About. And you can see, yep, correct, we have Extended Support Release version 68 installed. Okay, I'm happy with that. It is xfce after all. But if you wanted to go ahead and download the latest version of this browser, then you can do that. Just pointing out here that when you would normally go down to Help and you go down to About, there is normally an option in the standard browser to be able to click on Download Update if there is one available, or it will do it automatically. Because we're using the extended support release here, it will remain on 68.9 until the openSUSE team push out a update for this one here. In my case here, it will stay on a version 68.9. However, if you did want to go down and download the latest, you can also do that via Flatpak and Snap as well. Do that. So we know now we've got version ESR of the Firefox browser. Let's have a look to see what Office applications we've got installed. So if we click under Office, you can see here we've got LibreOffice. So if I click on LibreOffice, hopefully that is 6.4.4. We'll find out. If I go to Help, and I'm on 6.4. There we go. Yep, lovely. So that's the latest. Probably not the latest version, but it's latest enough that it works here in openSUSE. It's not 6.3, thankfully. I'm told 6.3 is still readily available and supported for another 3 to 5 years, maybe. So businesses, you don't have to worry about upgrading just yet. But that's 6.4, which is great. And what else have we got here? So under the multimedia, we've got our media players here. I don't know what Parole is like as a media player overall, because normally under my xfce environments, I think I have MVP player that loads up by default there. We've done Office. So under the settings here, you get the option to go ahead and change the appearance. We'll do that in a moment. Let's just take a quick look at graphics. So you get GIMP installed by default. Let's see if that's version 2.10. And thankfully it is. This is the first time loading this, so it's taking some time to load, but once all of this is loaded, each time, or next time I go to load this application, it will load a lot faster. Yep, there we go. So if I go down to Help and About, we are running 2.10.12, which I'm led to believe is the latest version. So we just quit out of that one there. So that's good to know that GIMP comes down by default. Again, you do have the option to tell the installation what additional packages you would like installed during the installation process. But I would probably try to attempt to do the minimalist of installation that you can do. And then that way you decide what packages you want once you're into the installation here. So in my case here, I'm quite happy to just have a browser, access to an Office suite, a terminal obviously, and yeah, just give me an option to edit some of my photos. I'm happy. Do I want to do any web streaming with this? Yeah, maybe, but you know, I can go and download those as and when required. And then under Yast, so yet another software tool here. You've got the option to obviously download additional products. You've got, I think here as well, you've got online updater. So if I click on that, hopefully at this point, enter in my username and password. That should now go off to the internet and check for updates. refreshing now the repositories. And given the fact that this is now loaded and I can't see any updates available, it's happy. Okay, we'll just leave that open for a moment. So let me just minimize that. And whilst we've got the browser, I'll just minimize that as well. And we can come out of this now. We don't actually need this, but if I click Get Software, then it would take me into one of the YAST software management tools. Also as well, these build, contribute and help options here, they're readily available if you want to support the xfce team or the openSUSE team with any kind of general user feedback or help them out in some way to build the next release. I've unchecked this box here, so this box won't load on my next boot up, so I'm happy now to just click close. And pretty much I am ready and raring to go. However, there's a few nice tools that I like to use. Now I'm signed up to streaming music service Spotify, and one of the things I noticed during my testing of 15.2 Leap earlier this week was that I had trouble installing and getting Spotify to work, either via Flatpak or even via the openSUSE repositories. Now, one of the issues I've came across is that in 15.2, not a lot of software is readily available to you on first go. So you might want to wait a little while longer before deciding to do a full install of openSUSE. But like I say, download the ISO, stick it on a USB key, and give yourself a go in testing mode with that. And just get a feel for it, see what you think with that one there. But yes, so Spotify is obviously a music service I use on a regular basis. Love listening to my music. In fact, I have it on all the time. Nice, relaxing way to obviously get your work done. And yeah, so I had some issues trying to get that to install. Now, anybody that's following my Twitter feed over there at RobinJust or on my Discord channel, you would have noticed that I posted up a few tips over the last couple of days to obviously get us through this issue. Yes, we do have a resolution, but first, let's go and install snapd. So let's go to the Snap website. So it's the snapcraft.io. Let me just maximize this for you here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go down to Store. And with any luck, we should have Spotify in the... No, it was there yesterday, but it's not there now. But if I do a search for Spotify, there it is there. It's got the green tick, so it's an official app. So we click onto that. And the latest version is waiting to download. Now, before we do that, let me just close down the online updater here, because you can't have more than one YAST window open at the same time here, apparently. Doesn't like it. Then I'm going to go into YAST software. Enter in my password. We'll just let that refresh for a moment. And if I do a search for Spotify, you see we don't have anything but Spotify, which is the client for the Spotify web API. We don't actually need that. And Spotify is not here. So what I need to do is I need to install snapd. So let's just search for snapd. No results. Okay, fine. Next, we head to a terminal. So if we do a Control-Alt-T, and that loads up our terminal window here. And if I just zoom in a little bit here for you, you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so openSUSE uses zypper as its package manager. So you can't use any commands that says apt-get, apt DNF, which they use in Fedora and Red Hat, or eopkg, sorry, for the Solus installations. So here we have to use zypper. So we type in sudo zypper. Now before I do the actual installation, I just need to refresh the zypper packages. So I just type in ref and press enter. Now it's asking for my password. And what this is going to do now is it's going to just do a quick refresh on the repositories. Now we've already done that through the online updater, but it's always advisable to check that in a terminal before you think about installing anything else. So this has already gone to, as you saw during the installation process, it's already gone and checked the non-OSS, the main repository, the main updater repository, and obviously the update repository non-OSS. So everything's come back, it's all been refreshed, all up to date, we're ready. So let's clear that window, and now we're going to install snapd. So we do sudo zypper install snapd. Press enter. No provider of snapd found. Okay, that's to be expected because we don't have any of the repositories installed yet. So back to the snapcraft website. If you go down to the very bottom of the page somewhere where it actually says install, where are we? Install Spotify on your Linux distribution. So we've got openSUSE listed here, so you click the link here and it takes us to a page to install Spotify just for openSUSE users. So here we click install snap, and now we're taken to some commands to enable snapd. So snapd, this will install on openSUSE Leap 42.3, Leap 15 and Tumbleweed, but you first need to add this snappy repository from the terminal. Leap 15 users, which is obviously what we're looking at here now, for example, can do this using the following command. What we need to do is swap out the Leap 15 or Leap 42.3 Tumbleweed if you're using different versions of openSUSE. So here we have the command waiting to be copied. So if we click this icon here, that will copy that. And you can see here we've got Leap 15 snappy there. We're in 15.2, so anything but basically version 15 or higher within the 15 repositories should be able to install OK. But if we come across an error, we will change that 15.0 to 15.2. Now, before we do anything else, we need to log in as the super root user. So let's see, we do sudo, so su, super user. I enter in my password because I'm the system administrator. I'm now logged in as the super user, so I now don't need to put sudo in front of any command that I'm about to run. So with the command that I've just copied from the Snapcraft website, I'm going to hold down my Shift key and my Control key whilst pressing V, and that will paste in the command here. Now you can see here it has put sudo in front of that. That's fine because we copied it directly from the website. But some websites you go to and you see commands listed, they don't actually put the sudo command in front of any of the commands that they want you to copy and paste. So as I'm now logged in as the super user, I don't need sudo in front of that. But if you do find those commands and they are missing sudo, then either you need to log in as the super user or you put sudo in front of it. It just means you're going to get prompted for your password each time that you want to install a package. So I'm going to now add the repository for snapd before we get around to installing Spotify. So now press enter, and it's now enabled it. It says yes, and it's done a check yes, and it's also selected to auto refresh. So all of those settings now have been set within the software management tool. So next time I go into Yast, I should see now, Snappy as a available repository for me. So now that's there, let's try to install snapd once again. But let's go back to the browser now. And now we've enabled that, we now need to import its GPG key. So again, we could click the clipboard icon here, but we are going to just copy from sudo onward. So Control-C, Alt-Tab to get back into your terminal window here, Shift-Control-V, and we're going to run this command here. Now it's retrieving those information, and it's got the GPG publication key there already. Perfect, that's great. So that's now been applied. So back to the Snapcraft website. Finally, we now need to upgrade the cache in order to get the new Snappy repositories. So without the sudo command again, I'm just going to copy zypper onwards. So Control-C for this, and Alt-Tab to get back to my command window, and Shift-Control-V. Press Enter. And it's happy, there's nothing for it to do. Perfect. So Alt-Tab again back to the Snapcraft website. Now Snap can be installed. So all we now need to do is go zypper install snapd. Once this is done, we then need to enable the service. So before we do that, let's install snapd. So remember what I said? It was, now I don't need to put the sudo in there, I can just go zypper install snapd. And the overall download here will be 12 megabytes. It's already cached in the system, and it will download an additional 59.2 megabytes. Am I happy with that? I've got yes, no, or verify, I think, or void. In this case here, I'm going to say yes to show all options. There you can see now it's going off to download all of the desktop environments for it. Yep, so there we go. GNOME desktop. Snapd 2.44.5 is now available on our system. Now it's saying please reboot, log out, log in, or source X profile to have snapd added as a part, bin added to the path. On a Tumbleweed system, you just need to run systemctl enable snap.aparmo. So we don't need that because we're on Leap. So just before we do anything else, let's go back here. So we saw that message appear in the terminal window. So all we need to do really is enable the service. So if we just again copy systemctl enable snapd and come back to our terminal window and paste that in. Again, you can see now I'm doing mouse controls, but I would normally do Control-C, Control-V. It is now created that, so it's enabled now. We just now need to start the service, so systemctl start snapd, copy that back into our terminal, and we Shift-Control-V to paste that back in. That's enabled. So let's just say CNF means cannot find, basically. So let's see. If it can't find it, it will give me an error. Why? If it's installed, it should confirm that it's installed. Okay, it says command's not found. That's fine. Yep, there we go. So it is present in a package called snapd. Perfect. It's installed. It's enabled. So let's give it a try. So hopefully I won't need to reboot or log out or log in again. But first let's give this a go. Oh, I'm already logged in as a super user. I keep forgetting. My apologies there. So let's try now doing an installation of one of the Snap packages that I use regularly. So before we start by installing Spotify, I first want to check that the Opera browser, for example, is available to me. So I'm just going to now go snap install Opera. Now I like to install the beta version of this because I like to play around and test. So let's just see if the beta version of the Opera browser is available to me. Yes, it is. It's found it. And now it's downloading it from the stable branch. Now it's mounting it. If you don't want to install the beta version, by the way, you just take out -beta and that will happily download just Opera. Now we've got this window appeared on our screen here because it has now mounted our ISO onto this virtual window here. So that's fine. We'll just close this window down. It's all part of the snapd installation process here. You'll only get that happening once. It won't happen all the time. It's because it's the very first time that we've run this. And we're just now waiting on confirmation that that now has been done. It's now downloading more from the Snap Store. And now it's downloading Opera. Great. So now we've enabled snapd and Snap is now working as expected. So once this is done, I'm going to download and install Spotify. Incidentally, I'm just using Spotify as an example here because of the issues that I was having earlier in the week to try and get the service to load. And I just thought I'd share my resolutions with you. And now normally when you install a Snap package, it doesn't take this long. The only reason it's taking this long at the moment is because it is loading my very first Snap. Okay, so our installation is now complete. Opera beta version 70 has now come down the line and has installed without any issues onto my system. So let's first check that that is now available to me to load as an application. So let's go into the start menu, or the menu in this case. If I go under Internet, I don't have Opera there as an option just yet. So basically I need to log out and log in again, or reboot the entire system. Before I do any of that, first of all, I'm going to attempt to run the application from the terminal window. So I'm just going to open up a new terminal, but because I don't want to interfere with the one I've currently got open right now, so I'm just going to do a Control-N. Or is it? It should have loaded a new window. Control-Shift-N. Which version of the terminal are we running here? Okay, open new terminal window. Okay, there we go. Right, I must remember that Control-Shift-N. So now we're going to attempt to open up Opera. So I'm already logged in as myself, so I now in this case need to do sudo snap run, and it was the Opera beta that I need to load. Pressing enter now should prompt me for my password. And what we should see is the Opera browser after a good 10-15 second pause there. It should load up. Okay, we got an error. No sandbox. Right, it's probably then because I need to reboot the system. Now, let me just try one thing, because this is what I didn't experience this error message, but I experienced a different kind of error message when I installed Spotify. So let's do because I'm logged in as myself now, not the super user, sudo snap install Spotify. Spell that correctly. Now watch how quickly this downloads and installs. Okay, so that's installed now. So if I just say cannot find Spotify not found, that's fine. It's a snap, so it's going to be expected. If I attempt to run Spotify now from the command line, so in this case I would go snap run Spotify, it will either run or I'll get an error. Okay, so here we go. Failed to load module. We haven't yet got the error message that I saw the other day. It looks like now it's loading. It is. Okay. So, sod's law. The problem hasn't reoccurred on reinstallation of openSUSE here in a virtual window. Okay, fine. But should you get an error message that is talking about host name, for example, you first of all see this error message appear, and then you get another message that comes on there talking about host names. So what you now at that point then need to do is you would need to obviously run a command in the terminal to basically get the host name changed there. So let me just recap on what I did yesterday. So one of the commands that we need to run here is hostnamectl. So in order to do this, whilst I'm logged in as myself, I need to run this as a sudo command. So let's first of all just run this. So sudo space, and you have to type in hostnamectl, and then space, / static, space, and now we're going to set the new host name. So in this case now we're going to go set -hostname, and now we're going to space, and you now at this point put in the name of the new host name. So in my case I'm going to call it openSUSE. It can be upper or lowercase, it doesn't really matter. In my case I'm just going to put it in uppercase, but I'm going to say openSUSE, and I'm going to go -L because I want to call it leap. Actually, I might just do leap, that's fine. So that'll be my new host name. So if I press enter now on this command, that's it, it's done. So let's take a look now at the networking tools. So let's just go into our menu and go into YAST, and we should see YAST network. And after I enter in my password, I should see some details about my IP address, my local IP address, and the name. Yeah, so straight away the window has loaded, and I can see that my host name has now changed, because if you can just about see this on screen now, you can see here that the YAST2 module has loaded up, and has got the name openSUSE-leap here. So that now is my new host name. Let me just check on overall. That's fine. Hostname DNS. Yep, there we go. So what we did there is we changed the host name inside the terminal. But you can, if you want to, come into this network option here and just click on hostname DNS and change it there, if it's available to you. It might be grayed out, I don't know, but we'll see. So that all checks out fine. So that's what I did to correct the issues I was having trying to get Spotify to launch within Leap 15.2. So if you come across that issue, follow those commands there that you can see on screen. I'll put a note down in the description of the video there. Plus also I will be doing a write-up around this on my blog there over at digitalrobin.net. But yeah, if you've got any issues with that, then you can poke around and do a bit of Googling, and you will find eventually a blog post within the SUSE forums there, which somebody does actually highlight this command. But I will say it's not easy to find. So if you follow my steps there, then it should be quite a simple process for you. So that aside now, let's see if we can actually launch Spotify from within the start menu. So if I go to multimedia, is Spotify there? No. So I'm now going to do a log out of the system. I'm in a virtual machine here, so it won't affect the recording here. So I'm just going to log out. Yeah, I'll close my tabs down, that's fine. I know that snapd is working now. Let that reboot. It's not rebooting as such, it's logging out and logging in again. There's been so many changes going on in the back end now, because obviously I installed the Opera browser, I installed snapd, and obviously installed Spotify, made a tweak to the network hostname, and I've done a few other tweaks in the back end as well. So therefore it's now resetting all of those. Hopefully I should be able to log back in as normal. I'll give it a few seconds more now. If nothing happens, I will force a restart on the virtual window. The cursor's not flashing, so I don't know, but I mean, I have got a mouse that moves. Yeah, it could be that the VM has frozen. So if I come out of the VM, I'm going to force a reboot on that one. Clearly that has marked. Okay, I'll just force an off. In fact, we'll try a reset. There we go, reset worked. So we're going to boot back into the system now. And you can see that we're running the kernel 5.3.18. It's fairly recent. It's got all the drivers you need to help you with long-term support. Incidentally, this is an LTS release, so you should have somewhere between 3 and 5 years support on this. Okay, so I'm just going to, once this loads up, now we've done snapd, we've installed Spotify and Opera. I'm just going to launch the Opera browser just to see if that actually worked. And then I will just quickly see if those extra xfce plugins I asked to install have actually installed and are working fine. Now, it was a log out and a login that I did, so hopefully the desktop will resume back to the last state that I left it. Maybe... Nope, okay, so I think it actually was a power off, power on again. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So now if we go into the menu and go under Internet, you can see now that we've got the Opera beta available to us now. Let's just check that launch is okay. And while that's doing that, let's see if I can see if Spotify is there. Yep, there it is. Ah, here comes the Opera browser now. Again, first time launch, it will take some time to load. It is the Snap version, so therefore it's had to run a few configurations first of all so that it can open itself correctly. So now if I close that down and load it up again, if I cancel out the key rings. Yes, I know. Key rings are annoying. Let me be in charge of my password, not you. And if we load up the Internet and Opera browser again, it should load a lot quicker. There we go. And the more and more times I do that, the faster it gets. Here we go. I haven't just left it up there long enough. So let's now quickly see if Spotify loads. So for that I go into Multimedia and Spotify. Again, that's the first time it's running, so that will take a little while to configure itself. It's all about patience. Incidentally, I'm not in Oslo. I live in the UK, in the Garden of England, in the county of Kent. So no, I'm not in Oslo. Cancel out the keyrings. Yep, Spotify is loaded okay. Yep, that's working perfectly. So the issues I was experiencing the other day, looks to have gone away. So maybe I didn't tick a few boxes or I didn't configure it correctly on my first installation there. But anyway, you've seen what I did in order to get that working. So if you do come across that issue, then just follow my tips there and all should be fine for you again. Right, so the one last thing to point out here is that as I'm trying to close this window down, I'm realizing I'm accidentally clicking this or moving the scroll wheel on my mouse here. So therefore I'm switching desktops. Now I don't know if you can see down here in the bottom right hand corner of the panel here, as I'm moving my scroll wheel up and down, I'm actually switching desktops from 1 to 2. So you can have multiple desktop workspaces here as well. I don't generally work with that because I'm a dual screen user anyway, but you know, if you wanted to have a browser on one screen, a terminal on another, you could do that via workspaces, especially for the single screen display users. But if you wanted to disable that, you just come across down here, you do a right click and you go into workspace settings. And here you can just change the number of workspaces back down to 1 and then click close. That doesn't get rid of this though, that stays there. So the first thing that I always do with xfce is I right click that and I just say remove. Remove, yes please. Okay, so now remember I downloaded the weather widget and also the sensors widget as well. They should load now and be available to me as an option to be able to add those items into my panel. So to do that, I come down to the panel here, right click, go to panel, panel preferences, and here I click on items, and this is currently what's available to me here within inside this panel. But what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to click on the plus icon and do a search for weather, and yep, there it is available to me. So click that, add. It's now put it into my panel. It's now waiting for some data because I need to set my location and how I want the icons to display, etc. The next thing I'm going to install is sensor. Now this might not work because I'm using a virtual machine, but we'll give it a try anyhow. If I look at my weather updater and I click the cogwheel here, that then will bring up the preferences, and it's here that I can change the location. And I'm going to choose Rochester because I'm in Kent. And I'll do Rochester, Kent. And you can see now in my panel that I'm now getting some weather data for my location. Perfect, that's working. Under the units, obviously I'm in the UK, I'm looking at Celsius, but you can change that to Fahrenheit if you want. You can also change wind speed to kilometers or knots if you like that. Or your barometer. Obviously we manage our pressure here as PSI or HPA. So I'll leave that there as default. Appearance, yep, so we're using a single panel row and we've got liquid as our icon set. I don't mind that, that looks perfectly fine, but you've got liquid dark and simplistic available to you there as well. Plus also we're showing 5 days currently, but you can reduce that down to as many days as you like or increase it to more, as long as it can get those that data out of the weather services for you. And then you've got round values currently checked, so if I uncheck that you'll now see that my temperature has gone down to 14.9, but with that checked it will round it up to 15 degrees. I always like to see it to be absolutely precise, so I uncheck that box there. Scroll box, you can see currently we're looking at temperature, wind direction and wind speed. That's all now animating through quite nicely, but I am not really that much interested in wind direction or wind speed. This is a very windy day, so I'm just going to remove those and just leave me with the outside temperature currently showing as 14.1. So with that I'm done. Let's just check the sensors quickly. So if I just do a right click on the sensors and go to properties, and let's just see, yeah, so nothing's available to me currently right now apart from ACPI because I'm in a virtual machine. On hardware you should be seeing some more listed here. It enables you to basically keep a check on your GPU and your CPU temperatures and fans, I think, as well. So it's a very, very useful tool to use there. So with that, I am ready and raring to go to use this as my daily driver. But just one last thing to do. Dark theme. Oh yes. So to change it to dark, what I need to do is come to the menu again, go into all applications and select appearance. And here we're currently on Greybird Gecko Light. I'm going to do Greybird Gecko Dark. Excellent. You can see now that it's changed. Now, as I pointed out when I was doing my Ubuntu testing, just while we were in beta there, the xfce 4 installation, when you change it to dark mode, it doesn't change the window to dark. It kind of leaves it like this shadow appearance, and I don't like that. I don't know about you, but I don't like that. So to change that, again, we go to the menu and we type in window, and you can see you've got window manager and window manager tweaks. We need to select the window manager. And here we select Greybird Gecko Dark. And you can see now that our toolbar has gone dark and we have the font set as size 11. That's quite large for me, so I'm going to just change the font size there of that Noto Sans, just change it down to 10. And you can see now that that has minimized that to a nice view. Incidentally, there are many other window options available to you, so if you do like your, I don't know, bluish color, aqua, mac, whatever, you can change it here. What was it? I tried one the other day. What was it? Basics. Yeah, that looks nice. But obviously, there's quite a number of ones to choose from here. But I obviously have selected Greybird Gecko Dark, so I'm going to choose Greybird Gecko Dark as my window manager here. Perfect. We are done. We are now in dark mode. Icons you can change here as well. If you wanted to install more icons, you would need to obviously download those from the I think it's the xfce looks website. Anyway, just Google download xfce themes and icons, and you can do that from there. But you'll obviously need to follow the instructions to get those downloaded and installed correctly. But when you do, you'll see them appearing in the list here. So icons, fonts, you can change the fonts, The default font for me is a bit high at the moment, so I'm going to change that down to 10. I have good eyes at the current moment in time. There we go, that looks much, much better. And then under settings, yeah, we don't really need to change anything here, but we're on 1% scaling at the moment, so that's no scaling at all. But if you wanted to, you can scale it to 2%, and that will magnify everything for those that are visually impaired. So there we go, we're done and dusted. We have installed openSUSE 15.2 Leap xfce. Shown you how to get the xfce desktop environment installed through the installation, and we've also changed the networking facility to obviously change the name of the host name and install and run a few Snap applications. So thank you very much for joining me here today. Do like this default background. There's a lot here. If you look very, very carefully at these, there's a lot to tell about this lovely illustration here. If you look very, very carefully, you can spot things. I think that looks like a motherboard or a Raspberry Pi. Yeah, it's all there. You can, and there's the Leap logo, for example, and there's the openSUSE logo. So yeah, there's a lot there you can see. But if you wanted to, you can obviously go into desktop settings, and you can change the wallpaper from here. So the installation that I did, I only downloaded a few minor updates to wallpapers, but if you've got some of your own, you can change the folder where that looks. So for example, if I had anything in pictures, I can change it there. If I had anything in downloads, I can change it and show it from there. But obviously the default location is xfce, so you're going to get the openSUSE and the xfce wallpapers from there. So let's just do a quick test on that one there. So if I select that one, we go, ooh, blue. And ooh, that's much better. Nice. Yeah, so you can customize it how you like, and I'll leave that down to you. Thanks very much for joining us here today. This video will be available online, obviously, for you to pause and go along as you like. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave some feedback in the comments field there. Again, as I said, I will obviously add in there in the comments field the commands that I've run from Snap, and in order to get the host name and everything changed in there. So if you are having any issues with that, then do by all means drop me a line. I'm at RobinJust on Twitter, or you can email me via my website over there at digitalrobin.net. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again in another video.